Hello there, my friends, and welcome back. I hope you've had an excellent week. I have been doing rather well, actually, for the most part. It's been hectic here and there, but I've actually managed to stay on top of my rest for the most part. It's hard going to bed on time sometimes. But you gotta do what you gotta do. And I have done more writing for this episode than I initially anticipated, but it is done. There's no more videos coming with this section. This is the last one, and we will be able to get back to tearing the Bible a new asshole like I've been doing as of late. I've got 2 books down and 64 more to go. It's been a hoot so far, and it's just gonna get better. But today's video, we are in the last portion of me sharing my beliefs. The final chunk regarding spirituality and entities, all that nature, and there's plenty for me to read and get to and try to cover, so without further ado, I think I might start making it a little tradition on here. Whenever I have a video talking about spirits or the supernatural or the entities of such nature, aliens even, we will have actual spirits in the present. Like Vin Diesel said, you can have anything to drink that you want as long as it's Corona. Of course, that was before the virus happened. In one of the Need for Speed movies. I think it was the first one. Been a while. All those Dom family memes are on my mind. Let's get to it. Without further ado, my name is Rogan, and you are watching The Mysterious Stoner in a Bowler. Now, if you haven't watched my previous video, you should start there. And if you haven't seen the one before that, well, they kind of all go together. These videos are about my beliefs, after all. And so, to understand this video, you need to watch the previous one. And watching the one before that helps a bit. But definitely the previous one, because I'm not going to get into all the whys and all that shit. That I talked about that in the previous video and a little bit here and there in others. But we're just going to get right back to what I was talking about with the entities that I spoke to via Ouija board. The first one that I talked to, it wasn't a ghost of a person. It had never been a person before, actually, and it wasn't a god, and it wasn't an alien. It didn't even have a gender, according to its own description. It described itself as being a helper, and being someone who had known me for a long time. We talked a lot. I gave it the opportunity to, I asked it questions, tried to learn things about it, and about its realm and such like that, because this was still the very early stages of all this. This is the first one I've had consistent contact with. And I'm going to share some of what I learned of those other things, the things about where that spirit was from and all that stuff. Some of the details, uh, ones that I learned both from it and from my research in learning about the supernatural and what other people say about it, and I found certain things lining up before, you know, uh, learning things from this spirit or this entity, and I would learn things from it and then do research on stuff, you know, and nothing specific, because a lot of times I can just put in um, a general spirituality type of subject into YouTube and can get all kinds of results, all kinds of random shit, especially. And I'll just, if I see something interesting, I will check it out. I won't necessarily believe it, but these are some of the things that have lined up. That I'll share a little bit later. Um, but we talked about these things for a while, and of course, I wasn't completely trusting it and all that. You know, skeptical, always remaining skeptical of this thing, of the supernatural. And eventually, it decided to inform me that it was one and the same being that had pretended to be the voice of God when I was a Christian. If you're not familiar with my backstory, I used to be a very strongly conservative evangelical Christian. Bit on the nuttier side because my parents believed some rather cult-like things, and they were very strict growing up and all that. But there was a brief period of time in my late teens. Well, it started a little bit earlier, but maybe late mid-teens and on for a few years, for my last few years as a Christian. I had um, this premonition, not inspiration, but it was I thought God was talking to me legitimately. I thought He was talking to me inside my head. It sounds crazy, I know. It's normal for a lot of Christians. Not all of them, obviously. Some of them don't believe that God can speak directly to them, but some of them do. And I genuinely thought I was, because I didn't know that prayer, believe it or not, is very, very close to meditation. And as it turns out, while learning different things from this entity that I met, meditation is one of those things, and this is also according to a lot of other people say this, that meditation is one of the ways to get in touch with your intuition and be able to speak to other world entities. Some say that. This isn't something I was completely accepting yet, but it was something that was part of what I learned. And so I sort of, in a prayerful state, I attempted to speak to God directly, because I thought, why not? I'm a child. I'm a born again son of God. Why shouldn't He be able to talk to me? So I tried to just be quiet and listen for that still small voice. And I got a still small voice that I had never gotten before. And it wasn't God. I found that out the hard way, on my own, without having to be told that it wasn't God. And you will have to go and watch my backstory to hear about that. And how I came to that conclusion and figured out that Christianity is actually bullshit. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to talk about what else this entity said. And this entity that I met via the Ouija board told me that it had played the part of God. It claimed to be the still small voice that spoke back to me. According to it, its job had been to lead me out of Christianity. It gave me some inspiration to do some very illogical decisions that I never would have done on my own. I did them only because I thought it would bring glory to God. That is all I cared about. And when they fell apart, and God couldn't confirm to me if I had been doing the right thing or the wrong thing, I very quickly fell apart. He couldn't even show that he acknowledged my hard efforts. I just wanted, I didn't need a reward. I just wanted him to let me know that he knew that I was trying hard and that I was trying to do my best, and he couldn't even tell me that. So. But this, in that moment of when that happened to me, I asked God for a sign to show him, to prove himself, a physical sign, to physically show up and show himself to me, because I really needed a boost of faith in that moment. I had never been so weak, and I really needed to know that everything was going to be okay, and that I was doing right by him, and that he recognized that I was doing my best. But not only did nothing happen, the still small voice went completely quiet. It didn't say anything. And this entity, years later, was telling me it had been that voice, playing God all along, just to get me out of Christianity. I didn't know whether to fully believe this or not. And honestly, this wasn't a painless thing to hear. It brought back a lot of painful memories, and it's painful just for me to talk about it now. But when this entity told me this, I realized that even if I had hallucinated both God's voice and this current entity talking to me through a Ouija board, it was all the more proof to me that the God of the Bible didn't care that I had been misguided, as he had never once tried to interfere or stop me or warn me or anything. Never spoke to me, never told me that the voice I was hearing wasn't his. He didn't bother to tell me. If there was to be any kind of God, it definitely wasn't the one that I had been raised to believe would never let a single soul slip through his hands. I believed no one would ever be left behind by God. But he didn't exist enough, or I wasn't praying to the right one. Out of all the 5,000 and some religions out there, Why not? Why shouldn't Jehovah be fake? And since I had no way to affirm or disprove what this entity was saying to me, I decided to skeptically accept it. Eventually, I met other reoccurring entities who turned out to be other guides of mine. They weren't there to tell me how to run my life, give me orders, or demand sacrifices in exchange for fame and riches. Nothing like that. They were there to simply encourage me and to advise and inspire me on my life's journey. Almost the same functions as the numbers I talked about in the previous video, but much more personal. Like having friends, but on the other side. Since starting my experiments with using a Ouija board and seeing numbers and doing my own research, I've collected a bit of information, cross-referencing things here and there, and have compiled kind of a list of things that I believe that I'm going to share with you. I'm just going to dump truck it, basically, in a organized sort of fashion. But right before I jump into that, I need to clarify something first. You see, there'll be Christians watching this video, and I want to make it clear to them and to everyone else as well who doesn't believe in the things that I do. Perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Typically, well, okay. I'll explain this for the non-Christians first, and then I'll, explain it for the Christians. Christians, when non-Christians talk about believing in something outside of the spiritual reference, they are not 100% certain. If they say they know, they probably know. They could be wrong. Any of us could be wrong about anything we know. But that's how that is. There's a big difference between knowing and believing. That's what I want you to understand here. Now, everyone who is not a Christian, when Christians talk about believing in God, in Jesus, that he's the Son of God, that he is the way, the truth, and the life, yada, 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 they 100% are into that shit. There's no, I'm pretty sure there's a God up there. I feel like there is one. Oh no, they are in. Most of them. Props to the ones who doubt and question. So, when I say I believe something, I don't say it a whole lot. But when I do, I'm pretty damn serious about it. But I am not 100% in on it. I take it seriously. I treat it like it is real. But I reserve a 10% for anything that I'm extremely certain of, but not 100%. If I say I know something, though, that is different. And I say that as rarely as possible. Because the older I get, the more I find that the less I know. Compared to everyone else, and compared to what I always thought I knew. So, when I say I believe, take it with a grain of salt. It doesn't mean I know it's a fact. It means I've seen enough to where I am convinced enough to treat it like it's real. But if evidence can prove otherwise, the door is always open. Gotta be ready for disappointment and change in this life. Because you never know when it's going to get pulled out from under your feet. And everything could be completely different than what you think it is. And here we go. I believe there are multiple dimensions and alternative planes of existence in addition to our own. Some we have limited access to via different tools like Ouija board. Some we probably go to when we die, and some hold more highly evolved or advanced beings that can voluntarily access ours. I believe these dimensions coexist in harmony with ours, like the many layers of musical sounds being played together to make a song. We're not meant to be mixed and jumbled across all the lines, but we do overlap sometimes. Louder in certain places and softer in others. Which is how we end up with like haunted locations and stuff like that. It's not literal music, but it works very similarly across the whole universe. You've heard people say the universe is a song. It's because it's constructed kind of like one. I believe we are individual immortal souls with our own bodies, living multiple lives, going through cycles of internal soul evolution. While I'm uncertain about the existence of places like hell in the afterlife, for particularly bad souls, I'm not really sure about those. I'm not at all certain if those exist or not. If they did, I would bet my own soul that none of them are eternal, if there are any. If there's even one. If there might not be any. And while I really have no way of believing that those places actually exist, I do believe there is some karmic justice in following lives. And people do ask, I've lived a good life, and I'm going through all this bullshit for no apparent reason. What did I do in my past life to deserve this? And there are hints of that sort of thing, of punishments from previous lives. Like different kinds of phobias. It could even be birth defects, even in animals. But I don't believe this is the case for everyone with phobias and everyone who has birth defects and who has bad luck. Because honestly, everyone has bad lives and everyone has bad luck. I believe in chaos as well. You can't control everything that happens. Sometimes things just happen, and you can't really completely control it. You can only control yourself. So, I think the only people that can really determine if a phobia or or some sort of bad luck or something of that nature, a deformity, defect, whatever, if anyone can determine that issue that person is having is something from a previous life, karmic justice, I believe the only person that can determine that is the person themselves that has it. No one else can say it for them. Do I believe in karmic justice in the more immediate life? Yes, I do. But I believe the karmic justice happens more in the afterlife. Like whatever life comes next. Because two reasons. First, because if we got automatic payback for everything we did in our lives, like immediate, then that would be too orderly. It would be like someone beating you over the head with a stick every time you do something wrong. That is actually not the best way to teach someone, believe it or not. And secondly, the reason is because, well, I believe humans are meant to be responsible for each other. Otherwise, nothing we ever do together would succeed. So there's no actual physical gods running around throwing thunderbolts at us every time we do something wrong. No. Vast majority of the time, I mean, you fuck with nature, nature will fuck with you back, but you fuck with humans, humans will fuck with you back. So, we take care of each other, take care of someone else, they take care of you. Makes existence a little bit easier rather than going at each other's throats all the time. And I believe that part of our evolution is, yes, getting along with each other, but I believe that every individual has special lessons that they have to learn, or sometimes it's both, sometimes it's just lessons or just a purpose. Because that's how life is sometimes. Especially if you take in karmic justice occurring more so in the afterlife, providing that's how it works. But every person has unique lessons to learn, or a unique purpose to fulfill in every life. What happens when we learn all our lessons and live all our lives? Well, I believe we get a break. A nirvana, a heaven, a Valhalla even, possibly. Some kind of rest. I don't have a name for it. I don't believe it's a specific kind. There could be multiple kinds. I really don't know. But I believe there is something. I believe there is something that is waiting for us that we all call home. That we all eventually go to. And after that, I believe there is even more. I don't believe we stay in that place eternally. Or that we're worshiping anyone eternally. I believe we're there to rest. To go home. And be at true peace with ourselves. Being our truest forms of who we are as our souls. But after that, I believe there's more. I believe it involves even more learning, even more evolution for our souls. I believe everyone grows at their own pace. Everyone mistakenly backtracks and gives themselves setbacks. I believe everyone gets bad luck, bad lives, but everyone gets the chance and has the ability to progress their spiritual evolution, no matter what kind of life or luck they have had. And I believe all it takes to do that is to simply never stop trying to be the absolute best version of yourself. That means being willing to be wrong and to change some or even all of what you believe. I believe life itself is about perfection. But I also believe very few people truly understand what perfection is. To Christians, a perfect life means to live without doing, thinking, or saying anything their God says is wrong. And it is honestly impossible to achieve. Their standards are way too fucking high. Their God is an asshole. To American and much of human society, the perfect life is like the American dream. Going to school, making friends, getting a college degree, getting married at a traditional money gouging price, having kids, putting them through college, growing old with your partner while seeing your grandkids come around. Then you retire, move into a nursing home, if you're lucky, and then you die. Honestly, if you think about all of that, it does sound like a good life. And I believe everyone gets their turn at such a life. Such a basic, normal, happy, simple kind of life. Everyone gets it. But we all know that we are not all built to be able to have the same lives as everyone else. And we don't all get the same lives as everyone else as hard as we try. Perfection is not never doing wrong or making mistakes. Chaos is a natural force of nature. We are drawn to participate in chaos as much as we are drawn to participate in order, whether we realize it or not. You don't have to think about it. You just do. And different people choose to be chaotic and orderly in different ways. And some people choose to not be balanced about it. Perfection is not a status that is reached over any period of time, nor is it an exact copy of another person's life outside of your own. I believe true perfection is simply a moment of choosing. Choosing to be as orderly and chaotic as an individual needs to be in order to best serve themselves and their fellow humans. And I know that the more correctly you control your orderly and chaotic tendencies, the better your life will steadily become. But to make the best decision for yourself and others, you have to get to really know yourself and really get to know others. And you have to be okay with always learning more, because there always is. And you know what? Even learning to be a better human is part of being perfect. Even before you learn the lesson, when you actively choose to sit down and learn, and you really start learning and you start studying, by taking action, just the very first action, combined with that choice, that is perfection. You study, you think about it. That is perfection. You learn it, you remember it, you use it. That's perfection too. Perfection is not just hitting the target. It is the act of seeking to find the right target and the process of learning to nail the target. That is perfection. And when you live that way, with the intention of being a better person for the sake of yourself and for the sake of others, and you actually do it, you make yourself do it. You don't just say you'll do it, you actually do it. You work on it. You make it a daily thing. It is something I try to work on every day. I try to always make the best decisions. When I mess up, I try to remember for the next time. Always move forward. If you do wrong to someone else, you try to make it right. You look at your own weaknesses, you try to turn them into strengths. Whatever it takes. Learning to overcome a phobia is an act of perfection, because it's something that's going to benefit you and could very well benefit other people if you can help them overcome it. Or if you might end up being in a situation where your phobia could have stopped you before, but because you took the action to overcome it, it wasn't able to stop you from maybe saving someone's life or who knows what. At the very least, you've made yourself a more confident person because of it. And that's really all there is to it. Always strive to be the best version of yourself. And the act of striving to grow, to be that better version, that is perfection. That living moment is true perfection. I believe that is what we are truly meant to do, because there is no other feeling like that in the world when you become wiser. Not in a ha I know more than you sort of way, but in a wow, I needed to learn this. This was very beneficial to me, and I was not as good of a person before I knew this information. That kind of wisdom. When we learn those sort of things that make us better, that learning, that choosing to learn, the learning itself, the use and the sharing of that learning, all of it, all of those things towards self-growth, towards self-improvement, the practice you put into it every time, that is perfection. Because you are moving upwards. You are improving. You are making the world a better place. You can't make the world a better place if you don't make yourself a better person first. When you make yourself a better person, you automatically make the world a better place, because you act better than you used to. And you are an example to other people of how they should act. And you'll never know who you might be influencing to be a better person, because you are choosing to be a better person. That is real perfection. It is okay to mess up. It is okay to fail. And some people make the mistake of failing on purpose. Some people fail and constantly go in the wrong direction without even knowing it. That happens. But everyone at some point, whether it's in their current life or it ends up being another one, they always get another chance to turn around, eventually. They pay off the bullshit they caused. They make that turnaround. And anyone can turn around at any time. It is completely their choice. But of course, they have to be able to see that they're even going in the wrong direction before they can make that choice. And unfortunately, some people get stuck going the wrong way. Another reason why, well, it's not a reason per se. It's more of a, but I feel like it's much more of a fair thing, and it's something that I've learned through my research, is the reason why we have multiple lives, so that we get a chance to turn around. And that is something I believe happens to everyone. And the further you get, the less times you have to come back and relearn the same things. And when it comes to death, personally, I believe death is no different than the sleep a caterpillar goes into before waking as a butterfly. If that's the direction you've been evolving in your life. If you've done the right things, if you've tried to be the best version of yourself, if that's what you have strived for, your next life will reflect that, I believe. But in order to be that butterfly, you have to first embrace being a caterpillar. You gotta embrace this shit. Caterpillar has to learn how to build that cocoon. I don't know where they learn it, but they figure it out. The ones that don't, well, they don't become butterflies now, do they? But the ones that do the work, that build and make that cocoon, they become butterflies when they wake up. Well, but they are butterflies by the time they wake up. Who knows how that shit happens, but that's Mother Nature for you. And that concludes all the beliefs that I'm willing to share with you. So what did you think? Was it crazy? Was it nutty? If you thought that was crazy, go back and listen to the beliefs I used to think as a Christian. And I was taught to take the Bible 100% literally. So everything you read in the Bible, I was, okay, not 100% literally, most of it, but the vast majority. But if you actually read the Bible, it's got some pretty fucked up shit. And if you watch my other videos, I've gone through all of Genesis, all of Exodus, and I'm going to go through the whole fucking rest of the Bible. It's going to be a fucking blast. So, if you have any questions about this supernatural shit, I might be able to shed a little bit more information of what I know, because I haven't shared everything that I believe. I will say I do believe in aliens. To an extent. I'm uncertain of how many kinds there are and such. All that. But I do believe they are real. I've actually seen some of the weird lights in the sky and shit. Haven't met any. Face to face. But that's all I'm going to say about that. Ask any other questions you wish about the entities I've spoken to, or the numbers, or whatever. Any other questions you want to know. I know some of the things that I shared sounded vague, because honestly, researching something like this, it's like exploring inside a fog, but you're stuck going at the pace of a tortoise. So there's only so much you can see, and only so far you can go at a time. And personally, I have things that are more important to me than exploring what is to come outside of this life, outside of being a human, and what goes on in those other dimensions and stuff. Sure, I would love to know all those things myself. But what I do on this channel, the reason why I make this series and all that, the purpose to me is more important behind that. And you can watch other videos to find out what that purpose is. Like, subscribe, and share if you haven't. Tell your friends about the weird, nutty, bowler-wearing, stoner, Corona-drinking wacko you discovered on YouTube. And I hope you'll come back next week, because I'll be starting back up in the book of Leviticus in the Bible. Gosh, I have such a good time doing that stuff. You have a pleasant rest of your weekend, my friends. Stay safe, and until next time, farewell.